Hi guys, I'm Kasha. Welcome to the channel and welcome as always to our coffee times to discuss books in horror. And today I'm here with the first book review for 2024. We're here today to discuss Signed, Sealed, Dead by Cynthia Murphy, and this is going to be a spoiler-free review.
It's coffee time!
In the month of January, I did get to read a couple of amazing YA horror mystery thrillers, but I decided to talk to you about Signed, Sealed, Dead by Cynthia Murphy because she is one of my favorite YA authors, and I felt like this is a book that I could talk a little bit more in depth about without any spoilers at all. And this is her fourth full-length novel, and she's well known in the community for her YA murder mysteries, and this is another one. Signed, Sealed, Dead is the story of Paige and her family that are relocating to the United States. And when Paige gets to meet some of the people in town, she realizes that the town has a dark past and a series of murders happened back in the 90s. The cases were closed and they became cold cases. Nobody knows what happened to those girls that were murdered back in the 90s, and the killer is still on the loose. Paige has always been really into true crime, and so she takes it upon herself to figure out what happened to those girls and try to solve the mystery. As you guys know, I love true crime as well, so I could relate in that way to Paige. And also we have here a killer that is on the loose and some murders that happened back in the 90s. So a lot of the things that this book was about were things that really interest me already. So I went into it really excited and I ended up really enjoying it. So I'm here to let you know what you can expect from the characters, the themes, the writing style, so that you guys can decide if you want to check it out as well. Our main character is teenager Paige. We also have her mom, Sarah, and her dad, Jake, and we get to know the family as they are relocating from the UK to the US, which is a big change for Paige. Imagine being a teenager with all the changes that you're already going through, and then they relocate you to a completely different country where you don't know anybody, so it's a big change. And I like that the author takes the time to set up that moment of the family moving to the new place, and we get to discover how they work as a family. We get to know their family dynamics, and we don't only get to know Paige, but we also know a little bit more about the mother, about the father that used to live there, a little bit more about their background, and I think this helps a lot to make them feel like a real family. It is the first time that Cynthia has created a family that is truly like in the middle point of the story. We all know that a lot of the YA books are centered around the teenagers and the parents may or may not be present, but I felt like in this one you truly get to see the whole family picture from the very beginning, and it was really refreshing to see that this is seen as a family unit and not just a teenager in her story like separated from her parents. And the dad, Jake, used to live in that town. He grew up in the United States before moving to the UK and meeting Sarah, Paige's mom. And so it is relevant because Jake's backstory is connected to that town, and it is important, in my opinion, to get to know the parents as well in this specific story. So I think that Cynthia's decision to involve the family so much was needed for this type of story, and I really appreciated it. Apart from Paige's family, we also get to know the neighbors. So the neighbors are two twins, a brother and a sister, that live there with their two moms. And the moment that they meet Paige, they tell her that her house is rumored to be haunted, and they don't even want to get into the house. So we as the reader are already kind of questioning what's wrong with this place. Soon thereafter, Paige starts receiving some mysterious letters addressed to her. She doesn't know who is sending them or why, but they seem to be either warning her or almost threatening her, and she feels then the need to investigate and try to solve the mystery of what happened in the town back in the 90s, because people are starting to get killed again. The first thing that is presented to us is the rumors that Paige's new house is haunted. So we have here the typical horror trope of the haunted house in a small town. Every small town, or at least a lot of towns in horror, have that empty house, abandoned house, sometimes isolated from town, that is always rumored to be haunted. Maybe a witch was rumored to live there, maybe a family was butchered there and since then has been empty. There's always that house that everybody, you know, starts spreading the rumors about, saying that it's haunted. And the kids sometimes are correct and the adults should have been listening. So we do have that kind of first horror trope introduced into the story at the very beginning: blackmail. And a lot of horror includes blackmail as a way of posing a threat to our main character or the whole family. We have either like letters, messages on your phone, an email, a chat, I don't know, you name it, messages on the wall even. Like there's some sort of person or entity that is trying to threaten or warn our main character about something. So we know there is a threat. Somebody knows either where the characters live, where they work, they might know secrets from their past, they might know something that they have done. And so the fun of the mystery starts. Who is sending these messages and why? And sometimes those messages are not sent to a family or a teenager, but they are sent to the police or to an investigator. It might come straight from the serial killer. So it's always like all of these questions that arise, and this is something that is utilized not just for horror, but also in order to create that tension, that thrill, and that mystery element. I always love to see this utilized in horror, and I like the way that Cynthia did it in this particular book, because we have something very old school. We have handwritten letters that are being left for Paige to find in her own mailbox. So when you have this, it feels more personal. Somebody is leaving the letters inside of the mailbox. They are not mailing them, they are leaving them in person inside of your mailbox that is just outside your home door. So they feel very personal. The thread feels really like close, and I think that was such a good choice. Sometimes in horror nowadays, because of all the modern technology, there's a lot of characters that receive threats via SMS, or they are tagged in a post on Instagram, things like that. And there is a lack of, how to put it, like personal threat when it comes to that. It just feels more superficial. So I think the fact that Cynthia chose handwritten letters delivered straight to Paige's doorstep made the threat a lot more intense. Serial killers is another topic that will be discussed in the book. As we learn, back in the 90s, in the span of 1 week, several girls were murdered and the killer was never found. So Paige now is trying to figure out what happened back in the 90s by investigating. And also in the present time, new teenage girls are being killed using the very same modus operandi. So is it the same killer that was active back in the 90s before the killing stopped? Or is it someone new that knows the killer's modus operandi and is now a copycat killer? The book offers some representation as well, which I was really excited to see. we have some LGBTQ plus representation because the twins have two moms, so two women that are married that have kids together, and I love to see that. It's introduced as something natural, as it should, and I love to see it. And then we also have representation when it comes to leukemia. There is a character that has leukemia, and the author herself had cancer, and so she's kind of speaking from her own experiences and the things that she felt while she was going through treatment, while she was diagnosed. And so I really enjoyed to see that also represented in the book. Every time I have read books by the author, I have always felt such an easy way of moving the storyline forward at a very fast pace, and it makes the reading experience so enjoyable. Also, a lot of the chapters end either leaving you with open questions or with a straight full-on cliffhanger, so that also motivates you as a reader to keep reading. And every time I read like a book by her, I'm unable to put it down. I read her books in 1 to 2 days top. She also always loves to leave like horror Easter eggs or horror references in her books, which I've always appreciated. I think it was The Midnight Man where she referenced Scream, but there's other references as well. And in this book, she references Supernatural, which is a TV show that I love and adore. So I love to see that. Some of her horror references might be for older audiences, maybe some teenagers might not get them, but I feel like she leaves them there also for older readers that might appreciate them, and me as a horror fan, I definitely do. In this specific novel as well, we have something really interesting, which is the cultural differences between the UK and the US, which leave a lot of room for character development as well, because we have Paige that has been growing up in the UK and now has been relocated to the US, and she has to learn how things work there. She questions, you know, if the things that she has seen in the movies actually happen in real life, like prom and stuff like that, you know, that other countries might not have or might not celebrate the way that it is in the United States. And there are many words that she is learning because they are different, like UK English and the US English, like bangs and fringe, pavement and sidewalk. We also have, I think, boot and trunk in soccer and football, like all of these things, and it's a lot of fun to see that. And I think that it made it really interesting and gave Paige a lot of room to grow as a character. There is also mixed media in the book, which I really enjoy, and she already did some of that in The Midnight Game. So this time around we have diary entries and some text messages, which were a lot of fun to see. Cynthia really knows how to utilize horror tropes and make them work for her. I think because she is a huge horror fan and has always been, and she loves slashers and she has such a wide knowledge of it, I think she has that kind of talent to pick all the horror tropes and make them work without them feeling boring or overused. And I really enjoyed to see all of those horror tropes come back to life in her stories. I mean, the book already starts with one of those super typical horror tropes. Family moves into a new house looking for a fresh start, and it's mostly also either in another country, another town, and that is what we have here. But it didn't feel repetitive, it didn't feel boring. It felt actually refreshing and interesting because it was a big jump, you know, from the UK to the US, plus there is a lot of like things connecting the family to that place and the background of what happened there, and giving the family so much time to get the introduction that the family needed in order for us to understand the family dynamics and everything. So I think she did it wonderfully. Of course, when you relocate a family, you also have like sub-tropes like the new school, the background and the secrets that the people in town are keeping. So there's a lot of, like, I would say, sub-tropes that come attached to family moves to a new house. In The Midnight Game, one of my favorite things that the author did with the horror is combine modern technology with more old school stuff. And she did the same thing in this book. I mean, not using the exact same tools, but let me explain. We have, as an old school technology, if you may, we have the handwritten letters that are being left for Paige to find. And taking it to the modern times, we do see Paige exploring the house with her phone torch. But not only that, she also gets these motion sensor lights that are going up the stairs leading up to her room, so that if someone is going upstairs, the lights will, you know, turn on so that she knows someone's coming. And I thought that was just genius and brilliant. You know, it's kind of like modernizing a little bit the haunted house trope, because you know, the motion sensors is something that I have not seen utilized much in horror at all, and putting them on the steps going upstairs, and I thought that was genius. The main horror element in this book is obviously a serial killer that is on the loose. Someone murdered girls back in the 90s and that person was never caught. That person seems to be back, either the same person or a copycat killer, and teenage girls are being targeted again. So obviously Paige needs to figure out what's going on, because girls at her school are being targeted, and that also includes herself. Cynthia is a YA writer from Northwest England, and she has always had a love for writing. She also has a huge love for all things scary, and she loves Buffy the Vampire Slayer. She started reading point horror books when she was young, and then she transitioned to reading Stephen King in her teens. And she also obviously loves slashers from the 90s and 2000s. She is the author of Last One to Die, Win, Lose, Kill, Die, The Midnight Game, and now Signed, Sealed, Dead. She also has a novella called Welcome to Camp Killer that came out last year, and last year she also got a short story published in the YA horror compilation A Taste of Darkness, and her story was one of my favorites. If I remember correctly, it was the last story in the book, and it was one of the shortest ones, and it involved the mannequin, and I absolutely loved it. Currently, I have not been able to find any projects planned for 2025, but my hope is that we will get her next book in January 2025. I believe all her books have been published 1 year apart, always at the beginning of the year, so hopefully January, February 2025, we will be able to get the next novel. To wrap up the video, I will say I strongly recommend you guys to check out this book, especially if you, like me, love true crime and investigating serial killers in a small town. And if you have enjoyed the other books by the author, definitely this one will not disappoint. If you have never read her books before, I would say it doesn't matter which one you pick up first, to be honest. I guess it depends what kind of subgenre of horror you are more into. And if you love, in general, YA mystery thrillers, also another one that should be on your list. And I would like to finish this video with my favorite quote of the book, which is, "But if I see a raccoon, I'm keeping it." So this was my spoiler-free review of Signed, Sealed, Dead by Cynthia Murphy. I hope that you enjoyed it. Let me know down below if you have read her books before, if you were planning on reading this one, and if you have read multiple of her books, let me know down below which one is your favorite so far. Thank you guys as always so much for watching, and I hope to see you all in our next coffee time. Bye!